The Middle Kingdom. The Middle Kingdom was a period of Egyptian history spanning the 11th through 12th dynasty, 2000 to 1700 BCE, when centralized power consolidated a unified Egypt. The Middle Kingdom, also known as the period of reunification, is a period in the history of ancient Egypt stretching from the end of the 11th dynasty to the end of the 12th dynasty, roughly between 2000 to 1700 BCE. There were two phases: the end of the 11th dynasty, which ruled from Thebes, and the 12th dynasty onwards, which was centered around El-Lisht. The end of the 11th dynasty and the rise of the 12th dynasty. Toward the end of the first intermediate period, Mentuhotep II and his successors unified Egypt under a single rule, and commanded such faraway locations as Nubia and the Sinai. He reigned for 51 years and restored the cult of the ruler, considering himself a god and wearing the headdresses of Amun and Min. His descendants ruled Egypt, until a vizier, Amenemhet I, came to power and initiated the 12th dynasty. From the 12th dynasty onward, pharaohs often kept well-trained standing armies, which formed the basis of larger forces raised for defense against invasion, or for expeditions up the Nile or across the Sinai. However, the Middle Kingdom remained defensive in its military strategy, with fortifications built at the first cataract of the Nile, in the delta and across the Sinai Isthmus. Amenemhet I never held the absolute power commanded, in theory, by the Old Kingdom pharaohs. During the first intermediate period, the governors of the nomes of Egypt nomarchs gained considerable power. To strengthen his position, Amenemhet required registration of land, modified nome borders, and appointed nomarchs directly when offices became vacant. Generally, however, he acquiesced to the nomarch system, creating a strongly feudal organization. In his 20th regnal year, Amenemhat established his son, Senusret I, as his co-regent. This instituted a practice that would be used throughout the Middle and New Kingdoms. The reign of Amenemhat II, successor to Senusret I, has been characterized as largely peaceful. It appears Amenemhet allowed nomarchs to become hereditary again. In his 33rd regnal year, he appointed his son, Senusret II, co-regent. There is no evidence of military activity during the reign of Senusret II. Senusret instead appears to have focused on domestic issues, particularly the irrigation of the Fayum. He reigned only 15 years, and was succeeded by his son, Senusret III. Height of the Middle Kingdom. Senusret III was a warrior king, and launched a series of brutal campaigns in Nubia. After his victories, Senusret built a series of massive forts throughout the country as boundary markers. The locals were closely watched. Domestically, Senusret has been given credit for an administrative reform that put more power in the hands of appointees of the central government. Egypt was divided into three werets, or administrative divisions: North, South, and Head of the South, perhaps Lower Egypt, most of Upper Egypt, and the nomes of the original Theban kingdom during the war with Heracleopolis, respectively. The power of the nomarchs seems to drop off permanently during Sensuret's reign, which has been taken to indicate that the central government had finally suppressed them, though there is no record that Senusret took direct action against them. The reign of Amenemhat III was the height of Middle Kingdom economic prosperity, and is remarkable for the degree to which Egypt exploited its resources. Mining camps in the Sinai, that had previously been used only by intermittent expeditions, were operated on a semi-permanent basis. After a reign of 45 years, Amenemhat III was succeeded by Amenemhat IV, under whom dynastic power began to weaken. Contemporary records of the Nile flood levels indicate that the end of the reign of Amenemhat III was dry, and crop failures may have helped to destabilize the dynasty. Furthermore, Amenemhat III had an inordinately long reign, which led to succession problems. Amenemhat IV was succeeded by Sobenneferu, the first historically attested female king of Egypt, who ruled for no more than 4 years. She apparently had no heirs, and when she died the 12th dynasty came to a sudden end. Decline into the second intermediate period. After the death of Sobenneferu, Egypt was ruled by a series of ephemeral kings for about 10 to 15 years. Ancient Egyptian sources regard these as the first kings of the 13th dynasty. After the initial dynastic chaos, a series of longer reigning, better attested kings ruled for about 50 to 80 years. The strongest king of this period, Neferhotep I, ruled for 11 years, maintained effective control of Upper Egypt, Nubia, and the Delta, and was even recognized as the suzerain of the ruler of Byblos. At some point during the 13th dynasty, the provinces of Khoi and Avaris began governing themselves. Thus began the final portion of the 13th dynasty, when southern kings continued to reign over Upper Egypt. When the unity of Egypt fully disintegrated, however, the Middle Kingdom gave way to the Second Intermediate Period. The Second Intermediate Period. The Second Intermediate Period, c. 1650 to 1550 BCE, spanned the 14th to 17th dynasties, and was a period in which decentralized rule split Egypt between the Theban-based 17th dynasty in Upper Egypt and the 16th dynasty under the Hyksos in the north. The Second Intermediate Period, c. 1782 to 1550 BCE, marks a time when ancient Egypt once again fell into disarray between the end of the Middle Kingdom and the start of the New Kingdom. It is best known as the period when the Hyksos, who reigned during the 15th and 16th dynasties, made their appearance in Egypt. The 13th dynasty, 1803 to 1649 BCE. The brilliant Egyptian 12th dynasty and the golden age of the Middle Kingdom came to an end around 1800 BCE with the death of Queen Sobenefru, 1806 to 1802 BCE, and was succeeded by the much weaker 13th dynasty, 1803 to 1649 BCE. Pharaohs ruled from Memphis until the Hyksos conquered the capital in 1650 BCE. The 14th dynasty, c. 1725 to 1650 BCE. The 13th dynasty proved unable to hold onto the long land of Egypt, and the provincial ruling family in Khoi, located in the marshes of the western delta, broke away from the central authority to form the 14th dynasty. The capital of this dynasty was likely Avaris. It existed concurrently with the 13th dynasty, and its rulers seemed to be of Canaanite or West Semitic descent. The Second Intermediate Period, c. 1782 to 1550 BCE, marks a time when ancient Egypt once again fell into disarray between the end of the Middle Kingdom and the start of the New Kingdom. It is best known as the period when the Hyksos, who reigned during the 15th and 16th dynasties, made their appearance in Egypt. The 13th dynasty, 1803 to 1649 BCE. The brilliant Egyptian 12th dynasty and the golden age of the Middle Kingdom came to an end around 1800 BCE with the death of Queen Sobenefru, 1806 to 1802 BCE, and was succeeded by the much weaker 13th dynasty, 1803 to 1649 BCE. Pharaohs ruled from Memphis until the Hyksos conquered the capital in 1650 BCE. The 14th dynasty, c. 1725 to 1650 BCE. The 13th dynasty proved unable to hold onto the long land of Egypt, and the provincial ruling family in Khoi, located in the marshes of the western delta, broke away from the central authority to form the 14th dynasty. The capital of this dynasty was likely Avaris. It existed concurrently with the 13th dynasty, and its rulers seemed to be of Canaanite or West Semitic descent. The 16th dynasty. This dynasty ruled the Theban region in Upper Egypt for 70 years, while the armies of the 15th dynasty advanced against southern enemies and encroached on 16th territory. Famine was an issue during this period, most notably during the reign of Neferhotep III. The Abidoz Dynasty. The Abidoz Dynasty was a short-lived local dynasty that ruled over part of Upper Egypt and was contemporaneous with the 15th and 16th dynasties c. 1650 to 1600 BCE. The royal necropolis of the Abidoz dynasty was found in the southern part of Abidoz, in an area called Anubis Mountain in ancient times, adjacent to the tombs of the Middle Kingdom rulers. The 17th dynasty, c. 1580 to 1550 BCE. Around the time Memphis and At-Jata'i fell to the Hyksos, the native Egyptian ruling house in Thebes declared its independence from At-Jata'i and became the 17th dynasty. This dynasty would eventually lead the war of liberation that drove the Hyksos back into Asia. The Theban-based 17th dynasty restored numerous temples throughout Upper Egypt while maintaining peaceful trading relations with the Hyksos kingdom in the north. Indeed, Sensuret, the first king in the line of Amozid kings, even imported white limestone from the Hyksos-controlled region of Tura to make a granary door at the temple of Karnak. However, his successors, the final two kings of this dynasty, Seqenenre and Kamose, defeated the Hyksos through several wars of liberation. With the creation of the 18th dynasty around 1550 BCE, the New Kingdom period of Egyptian history began with Amozi, its first pharaoh, who completed the expulsion of the Hyksos from Egypt and placed the country, once again, under centralized administrative control. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to check out other tracks as well. Show your love by hitting the subscribe button and do like, comment and share, to spread knowledge. See you next time. Till then, keep learning for fun.